For those of you that are unaware, there was a 90s show called Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It starred Sabrina and her Aunt Hilda and Zelda as they tried to basically make sure that the people around them didn't know that they were witches while dealing with their day-to-day life. It was a normal 90s sitcom back in the day. And yes, I was told by my executives that there is a talking cat. So it lasted from 1996 all the way to 2003. And after 2003, we got an animated series, which was on par with Disney-esque animated series. You know, that Saturday morning cartoon, you get up and all of a sudden your cat turns into a giant monster from hell. That kind of stuff. But no, that's not why I'm here today. Today, I am here to talk about Netflix's The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, released back in the fall of 2018 and capped off at the winter of 2020. This show went on for 2 years. Who would have think? It went on for 2 years. And you think all those episodes that came out, yeah, it's only a 36-episode season, and sadly, it got canceled. But I'm going to make a case for you. I think it ended just at the right time. I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons to Supernatural with the show because it does draw, especially in the 4th season, some similarities to Supernatural. There will be an explanation about this in the description, but seasons 1 through 3 are spoiled. I'm not going to spoil season 4 because it just came out like 2 weeks ago, and I just finished it. So, what is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina? The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina stars Sabrina Spellman, a normal human being who just wants to stay normal and is trying to balance her normal life with her more magical side of life. But then her 16th birthday comes and the rite of ritual happens where you have to put your name in the Book of the Beast. And so in every turn, she tries to defy the natural order of things. For the most part, in season 1, this kind of kept working in her benefit. She defied the Book of the Beast. We then get revealed that, Loosey Goosey is okay with it. Because sooner or later, he was going to find a way to make her put her name in the Book of the Beast. So why am I mentioning this? Because this is actually the formula of the show. Sabrina tries to defy the natural order, and nothing bad happens, for the most part. Now, why did I like it in season 1? I liked it in season 1 because it was new, it was fresh, we were just getting to know this world, and a lot of the twists and turns made sense. Like, for instance, the fact that Sabrina's parents adopted her. The fact that Aunt Hilda and Aunt Zelda were hiding things from her. Like, especially when you realize that 4 seasons basically took place over the course of a year, with season 1 being fall, season 2 being spring, season 1 being fall, season 2 being winter, season 3 being spring, and season 4 being summer. When you think about it like that. But there were some issues that went on. The season ends and Sabrina has some cliffhangers. We even get a winter episode. For those that don't know, the first season had around 12 episodes with a Christmas special that came out. And I actually enjoyed the Christmas special. We didn't get any new episodes until season 2. I know they call them parts, but for the sake of just keeping everything in the same nomenclature, we're going to call them seasons. Season 2 didn't come out until about April of 2019. And season 2 felt more of what I liked about season 1. With season 1, it played around with a lot of the mysticism and folklore of not just witch lore, but demonology. Like, it really gives you a deep dive study of demonology. And I liked it. And that's the same thing with season 2. After the point when I saw season 2, my brain kind of went, I feel like part 1 and part 2 is season 1. Whereas with part 3 and part 4, it's season 2. So it's almost like we got 2 seasons of a show, and it just kind of wraps up in 2 seasons. You can basically wrap up the show by separating it as season 1 being them kind of going over demons, and then season 2 being Sabrina versus pagans and the Eldritch. So there were some issues that were starting to show up. They started to dabble more into some of the drama aspects, whereas in season 1 felt vastly separate from any CW show I could think of. Hell, even comparing it to the staple of Supernatural, it felt like it was more grittier than Supernatural at times, and wasn't afraid to put in that extra punch. Season 2 was still grittier, still had that extra punch, but it added the Riverdale level drama element to it. It wasn't as obvious, but you could notice it in hints here and there. And so we end the season, and yes, I mean part 1 and part 2, with knowing that Sabrina is Lucifer's daddy. Sabrina is Lucifer's daddy. Wait a minute. Yeah, I know, trust me. When you get that reveal, it's weird. Yeah, Sabrina's dad is Lucifer, and she's technically the princess of hell, and it's... And then Father Blackwood's on the run after trying to basically create, sexism in his own school. It kind of just ends. And to be fair, I remember after watching that season, I said it could have ended there and I would have been happy. But Netflix renewed it for 2 more seasons. So we had season 3 and season 4 to contend to. So this is where I'm going to kind of almost go through bit by bit on season 2 until I get to part 4. Then I'm just going to be very generic. But, so in part 3, we get the pagans. And if I wanted to give a non-spoiler summary of how I felt about part 3 is, part 3 focused way more on the drama aspects than it did on the more folklore and monster aspects. Because you see, part 3 kind of had a knife in its back this whole time. It was kind of limping its way to the finish line this whole time. And the reason why was, for those that don't know, it had a controversy. This controversy was the fact that the Church of Satan did not like that its iconography was being used in the show. And you can kind of tell that the show is trying to find a way to back out of it. So I kind of get that in a weird way. The show's adapting with what literally is going on in the real world. But if we go back to what I literally just said earlier, the reason why I liked season 1 was because it delved into the dark grittiness of demon mythology. So now it's because it looked like they were going to go real deep, dirty into demon mythology. So the season is broken into, part 3 is broken into 3 parts. You have the fact that the Church of Night is now leaderless at the moment because Father Blackwood ran with his tail between his legs. You have this pagan circus coming into town, and they get as much screen time as Salem does. Poor cat. And then we get the Caliban versus Sabrina death match where they get to look for the 3 acolytes. Which that was actually only interesting thing about it, because they had to go through like the Trail of Tears, and they had to get like these 3 gifts to prove that they were worthy to be king. And one of them was like the knife Judas used to stab Jesus in the back, the crown of Pontius Pilate, and then I think the other one was, I know they had to go to like Death Valley. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but of course, you guys are always willing to edit this in the comments if you want. So that was all interesting because, again, we're delving into demon lore, but in 9 episodes, it only took up 3, and of the 3, it only took up like maybe an hour of the like 3 hours worth of show. And here was the other issue, because there were 3 big issues that happened from part 3 all the way to part 4. The episodes are kind of long. I know that we talk about and joke about that like Marvel's Punisher and Marvel's Daredevil goes a bit too long, but I'll say this, at least the episodes are cut to a point where I can actually watch it from beginning to end and go, oh, thank God it's over. Not, oh, I had to waste 8 hours of my life. Because, yeah, like, I remember part 1, there were literal hours upon hours of episodes where it was straight up, you are burning an hour out of your day. Not 45 minutes, not 30 minutes, an hour. In some ways, I'm almost thankful that The Mandalorian does not touch an hour. I'm thankful that the most it's been 50 minutes. So part 3, let's talk about Caliban first. Because I have called Caliban a beta cuck ever since I've kind of slowly gotten to kind of piece him together from way back when Season 3 came out, and then Castlevania came out, and I was like, oh, yay, something better. But then Part 4 comes out, so, hey, if we roll the dice, maybe Season 4 of Castlevania will come out after this. Wink, wink. But anyway, not the point. So, Caliban was basically like when you're replacing Voldemort with, what's the weasel's name from Harry Potter? Not Severus Snape, but like, Ron's rat. Like, not the human version of Ron's rat, but the rat itself. Whiskers. So Whiskers is the new villain. He doesn't do much, he's kind of annoying, and when he gets in your face, he likes to run away. In this case, for Caliban, he likes to always be shirtless for some weird reason. And I kind of like, slight spoiler for part 4, that they call out the fact that Caliban is a walking, talking thirst trap, and that's literally his character from beginning to end. So yeah, what's Father Blackwood doing, by the way, as Prudence and Ambrose are trying to hunt him down? Father Blackwood has more plot armor than plot armor, because, so, Father Blackwood is in Scotland. He's getting, like, the egg of the Eldritch thing, and Prudence is, like, about to kill him. And if there is another thing that can tick me off, it's the fact that whenever Prudence has a chance to kill Father Blackwood, it's either she barely kills him, or she make sure that he stays alive, because if he's dead, we don't have a good villain. I'll get to Lucifer in a second. I'll get to him in a second. Ugh. So they got Father Blackwood. At the time of the season, at that part starting, Lucifer is inhabiting Nick's body. So, and yes, I apologize if this is like you're listening to ramblings, but this is how I kind of have processed the season, and to be fair, the show was way worse because I'm trying to more thin line it to what characters we're doing in each part of the season to where you now are all summed up and know what you're doing. Got it? Got it? Cool. Okay, so Nick has Satan in his head. There's no other way to say it. And, well, I thought it was a cool idea, and we were going to see a way more crazier Nick. And hell, I remember when they kind of announced at the end of part 2 that they were going to save Nick from hell. It wasn't as interesting. And you could tell they were working with minimalistic budget. Because they were like, okay, we need to save Sabrina's boyfriend in the span of an episode, make it look just interesting enough to where you don't question it. Got it? Cool. Okay. So they save him from hell. Dorian Gray, just Dorian Gray, that's all I'll say. Like, that's how much I remember him, is just he's a bartender. And like, after Lucifer and Blackwood are in Nick's head, I'm just like, how is Nick gonna, this is when I started to have issues with the show. Any normal person, I think I remember Ambrose kept saying, like, don't do this, don't do this. And this started to become a repeating theme in part 3. Is like Ambrose would tell Sabrina, don't do this. Sabrina does it anyway. But here's the thing. In most normal shows, hell, most normal anime, hell, most video games, someone tells you not to do something, you do it, the whole world explodes. Sabrina doesn't do what Ambrose tells him to do. Yeah, maybe a little cut on her hand, but that's about it. Like, there's no consequences. And that's when I was slowly getting angry on season 3, was when it came to the pagan arc and trying to figure out what to do with Lucifer and the Church of Night and Father Blackwood and Nick. Now notice that's a lot. Just the whole Father Blackwood and Lucifer thing, that in itself could have been a season. And I think season 3, part 3, really becomes an issue because it's an overcrowded season. Like I said, the pagans only show up, I think, in like episode 5. Like, they really show their face in episode 5. And then they don't become a threat until like the last 2 episodes. But you wouldn't have known they were around because we had like 4 other things to do. And then the finale felt like you're running in a marathon, but then you sprain your ankle, and then a dog bit your arm, and then the sun blinded you to the point where you can't see anymore, but you got to get in first place because then you'll get scholarship for the college you want to go to. Do you see where I'm going here? The finale of part 3 was so bloated and so much, like way too much. Like, I'm surprised anyone was able to get from point A to point B on that one. So, back to Nick, Father Blackwood, and the rest. Oh boy. And I'm only at the 18-minute mark, folks. Because part 3 is trash. It's fine. So, Father Blackwood and Nick and Lucifer are all in the same head. Let's talk about Lucifer for a second. I hate the voice actor for him. I get why they probably chose the voice actor for him, but when you're kind of rivaling the voice actor from Lucifer and the fact that you basically are from the same company as DC, which DC also owns Archie Comics, which is the same company that made Sabrina. I mean, you could have really done a smart move, put the character from Lucifer into Sabrina, and I would have been giddy as a schoolgirl on prom night. Like, but no, you chose someone who ticked me off. Because he sounds like a weasel. Like, the dude who plays Lucifer, whenever he says, I'm gonna rip your throat out, I'm like, yeah, cool, dude. Oh, ow. Oh, you hurt my arm. Okay. Cool. You hurt me. You hurt me. No, that's it. That's it. Cool. So my brain's just like, I don't know how to process what happens. So they figure out what to do with Father Blackwood and Lucifer. I think it was like they needed Father Blackwood for something, and then they were just going to put Lucifer back in his body and send him back to hell. Like, no consequences. It's fine. We don't need to get rid of him forever. Mostly because I think I remember Father Blackwood was like sending the plagues of hell to the Church of Night. And the Church of Night was already losing their powers. Like I said, this season gets bloated. Like I said, I'm already at the 20-minute mark, and I still haven't covered most of it. So then Nick commits what we like to call character suicide. He thinks, oh, Sabrina's going to date Harvey Binkle, whatever. And Harvey Kinkle, and not love me anymore. And so he goes and fucks sex demons, slaps Sabrina across the face, I think, during the... or doesn't slap her across the face. I think he gets, like, really angry to the point where I'm like, how would I like this character ever again? In episode 5 of part 3. And he commits character suicide. There's a reason why I am bringing this up. I'm gonna need you to remember this. So that's happening. So at this point, here's everything that's going on up to episode 5. The witches are losing their powers. Nick and Sabrina are no more. Sabrina's losing to Caliban, which my brain just kept going, how are you losing to this beta cock? Like, there are times where I'm just like, Sabrina, you idiot! You know he's gonna fuck you over! So, finale. We get to the finale. We now learn that the pagans are basically sucking the magical essence from the earth using a carnival. I'd say the most disappointing thing in the show was pagans. And I thought the Eldritch was going to be disappointing, but surprisingly the pagans were more disappointing, because when it was the demons or even the Eldritch, you got an idea of where they were coming from. With the pagans, you kind of just saw they were throwing darts at the board just to see if anything could hit. So, whew. Do you see why I'm kind of furious? So, part 3 ends, and here's how part 3 ends. So, Sabrina takes care of the pagans by having peace with the Fae and magical world. Gee, I wonder what that reminds me of. And then she goes and does the last challenge, gets screwed over, which I do love that they almost screwed her over to the point where there were consequences. But wait, we're in Sabrina. There can't be consequences. Okay, I can do this. Okay. So here's what happens. The writers decide to put time travel into a TV series. When we just got off our dopamine kick of Endgame. So Sabrina, for lack of term, I'm going to say Sabrina A and Sabrina B. Sabrina B is a character you're not going to need to worry about, just it is a character. So Sabrina B shows up, swaps places with Sabrina A. Sabrina A goes back in time to before Caliban got all the things, puts them on the altar, and then she's like, wait a minute, Sabrina A and Sabrina B can coexist. And then me, after watching Inception and realizing this, goes, this is fucking insane! And there's gonna be consequences, but then I forgot the loop that I kept telling in this episode. There are no consequences. Well, at least that I knew after I watched the season. Yeah, Sabrina A gets to live her life on Earth, and Sabrina B gets to live her life in hell. And hell, Daddy actually loves her. Isn't that sweet? So how did part 4 fuck it all up? Okay, look. Let's get this out of the way. I actually, for the most part, hate part 4. I know, you were thinking I was going to say like it. No. There's more stuff I did not like in this season than I liked. Mostly because, here's the issue. They wrote themselves into a goddamn corner. And knowing what I know about what happened, the season 3 and season 4, part 3 and part 4, decided, like, they really wanted to get rid of the Church of Satan, essentially. And you can tell it. But by trying to do that, they almost got rid of the, I guess, like, they had to sacrifice the show just to follow the orders of a church, which is weird because the show's morals is the exact opposite of what they just did. So what is part 4 about? Without spoiling it. Because now we're in non-spoiler territory where I'm going to have to be vague as shit without being angry. So the good news is, unlike season 3, I wasn't angry. I was more just like, okay, we're back at this again. So I'm angry because they introduced time travel. They have 2 characters in the same reality. And, like, you think the world would be splitting in half. I've watched 12 Monkeys twice. The show's a really good show. And I remember when Cole touches his young... Okay, sorry. When Cole interacts with himself... I don't know how to say it without sounding weird. Basically what happens in 12 Monkeys is a nuclear explosion happens. Like, I'm not kidding. Sci-Fi Channel basically said, oh yeah, we'll give you a budget for a nuke. Just make it look pretty, okay? Oh, big blue light? Yep, that'll do. Okay. What does Sabrina do when she touches... What does Sabrina do when she breaks the paradox rules? There. When she breaks the paradox rules, jack shit happens. And look, I get it. Suspension of disbelief. But there's a point where suspension of disbelief just gets thrown out the window. Okay, sorry. I had to go on that tirade for a second because it leads into part 4 a little bit, and I can't talk about part 4 with why I'm angry. So, if I told you part 3 had a strong beginning, but such a weak end... Part 4 has the weakest beginning and a strong ending. But by strong ending, I mean at this point, the show is just bandaged up. It's got a few band-aids here. Half its legs are missing. It's on stilts, but the stilts are old and crotchety. So it's just limping to the finish line at this point. And yeah, it did feel like I was just limping to the finish line even when I was watching. So... back in part 3, we learned that Blackwood was getting some eldritch blah blah blah. And his blah 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 was going to, of course, do what? Take over the world. But why did this not work? Like, so what I like about part 4, I guess I need to start there. What I like about it, because I'm trying to find things to like about it. So I like the Eldritch Terrors. There were some that I liked and some that I didn't like. I liked the Endless and the Uninvited. I did not like the Void at all. Like, the Void is essentially supposed to be a black hole, and how they did the Void was disappointing. So... that being said, the weird was too normal to be weird, and, like, for Sabrina standards, the weird was not weird enough. The imp, we're going to call it the imp, kind of too dated right now to talk about it. The cosmos, yeah, existed. That's it. So there were only two, oh, and the terror, Metro 2033 did it better. Just saying. So there were only two good terrors. So what'd they do for the rest? Well, remember how I said that Sabrina at first was mostly about the horror aspect and not about the drama? So what do you do when you have no idea about Lovecraftian elements? You double, triple, quadruple down on the drama. So, to wrap this up almost, how do they deal with the whole two Sabrinas thing? It's frustrating, honestly, because I remember when they were like giving out the options and bringing a character that's in Supernatural, like what, season 11? If you guys want to know what season the character they showed was represented in Supernatural, and did a much better job, by the way. The two Sabrinas thing. So I have two trains of thought. At first, when it just showed up for like 2 episodes and then left. It was okay. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was weird, but I was fine with it. And then we get to episode 5, apparently, of part 3 and part 4 is just awful. Part 5 ticked me off, and I think part 6 had me fuming. But then part 7 showed up, and I'll get to that in a minute. So part 5 shows up and basically says, hey, we're going to do our damnedest to make sure that Sabrina wins no matter what. And, which, by the way, she loses at the end of episode 8, so none of this mattered, I guess. Like, literally, none of this mattered. So, I can't say this without spoiling, and I don't want to spoil it. So, just spoilers for episode 5, then episode 8. So, in episode 5, Sabrina A and Sabrina B are, in their mind's eye, starting the crash of the cosmos. Because there are two Sabrinas in this Earth. Now, my big issue with this is they didn't show it affecting the world that much. Like, by the time it was starting to actually take effect, I was like, this is just another day in Greendale. Moving on. So, Metatron, from Supernatural, who was played by, like, Skinny from Family Guy, shows up and is like, yo, I can take care of this. Kill Sabrina B. and everything will be fixed. And they're like, no, a life is precious, even if it literally is a clone of me. I mean, I'm still here, right? Like, yeah, in my personal opinion, it was very difficult for them to justify keeping two Sabrinas on Earth. Like, I get it. She wanted to balance her Earth life and her supernatural life, but when it got to the point where literally hell and heaven are crashing on each other, you lost me. So, they're about to merge into one entity, which I love how Metatron's like, yeah, there's a 56% chance this will work. I go, that's more than 50. I'm like, that's more than a quarter. I was trying to be optimistic. I'm like, hey, that's a higher chance than you think. In terms of like RNG and shit, but not the point. So Metatron gets her neck like savagely snapped. And I'm like, okay, she didn't deserve that. She was warning all you guys. And so Lucifer, everybody started going at her and trying to snap her neck. And so the two Sabrinas get to live the next day, and Sabrina B can just easily go into a mirror that sends her into an alternate reality. And the alternate reality is interesting. So now that I kind of basically spoiled most of episode 5, if not all of it, the good parts anyway. Episodes. So I did say there were 2 episodes I liked. I didn't love them. I just said, oh, this was a break from the mediocrity. Was episode 7 and episode 8. Episode 7, because they bring back a couple of characters and a lot of stuff from the show's past, which was great. And I liked episode 8. While in some parts it was just disappointing, in other parts I was like, this is smart. Like, for instance, and this isn't a spoiler, this is just a neat little thing, it started on Sabrina's 16th birthday, it ended on Sabrina's 17th birthday, which I found fascinating. I'm dying, it's fine. And I'll be honest, I didn't know how they would have capped this off. I thought it was going to be, the usual happily ever after. But it wasn't. It was... I don't know how to phrase it. Because, my prediction was she was going to live happily ever after. They'd go to school. But literally, it felt like The Sopranos, where it just kind of ends. And in some ways, I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I wish you guys just ended in season 2 or part 2. But that's fine. We don't need this. Overall, did I really like the show? Because, yeah, I know for a good 30 minutes, I was harping on it. The show's not bad. Look, the first 2 parts of the show are great. I'd downright say amazing. And then characters left and right in part 3 commit so much character suicide, it's not even funny. To where they become characters that I were like, this person wouldn't do this. This person wouldn't do that. Back in part 1, too. And then part 4 tries to forget that part 3 happened. So taking it all as a whole, it's a good show. You're not going to... If I gave you a watch order, I would say watch part 1, part 2, the first 3 episodes of part 3, the finale, the first episode of part 4, part 5, episode 5, 7, and 8. And that's all you need to watch. In some ways, I think its biggest sin is that it either needed to stretch out some parts that it was rushing through, and it needed to condense some parts. Like, the drama. I could give 2 fucks about the drama. Guess what? Side spoiler, because it doesn't matter in the long run, Roz is a witch, and they just, drop it in our laps and never bring it up again. I did like the Talking Salem, though. All in all, that's my view on the chilling adventures of Sabrina from beginning to end. It's a great show. I just think you kind of need to have a watch order with part 3 and 4. Because, dear God, I wouldn't even do that to myself. This has been Retro Gaming for Life. If you like the content that you see here, please click that like and subscribe button. We always like to know if content like this is what is needed for the lifeblood of the channel. So any comments, questions, concerns, or even just, sending a hey, how are ya, works out in the end. If you like what you see, just keep on coming back for more. And I will see you guys next time.